Listen, I need you to understand something before we get into this absolute disaster of a story. My name is Vrek, and I was, the Cultural Exchange Coordinator for Sector 7 of the Galactic Federation. Notice how I said was? Yeah, keep that in mind. So here is the thing about humans. When the Federation first made contact with Earth, we thought we had them figured out. A big mistake. Huge. The kind of mistake that gets you demoted to sanitation duty on a methane mining station. But I am getting ahead of myself. The cultural exchange program seemed like a brilliant idea at the time. Take students from newly contacted species, bring them to our finest educational institutions, show them the wonders of galactic civilization. Simple, right? We had done it hundreds of times before. The Kree? Delightful. The Morphians? A bit gelatinous, sure, but polite. The Zenthari? Absolutely wonderful students. Then we got the humans. More specifically, we got Jackson Webb from somewhere called Brisbane, Australia. And let me tell you, nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, in my 12 years of diplomatic service prepared me for that particular specimen of humanity. The day started normal enough. I was standing in Docking Bay 12 of the Celestial Academy, datapad in hand, reviewing the profile of our incoming exchange student. Human. Male. 20 years old. Studying something called marine biology with a minor in environmental science. The file looked fine. Standard. Boring, even. His academic records were decent. No criminal history. The psychological evaluation deemed him adaptable and friendly. The evaluation, as it turns out, was written by someone who had clearly never met an actual Australian. My colleague Trill stood next to me. She is, or was, my assistant coordinator. 3 eyes, purple skin, exceptional organizational skills. She hummed nervously, which she always did before meeting new arrivals. "Do you think this one will be like the last human?" she asked, twisting her secondary hands together. I waved a dismissive tentacle. "You worry too much. The last one was from someplace called Canada. Very polite, very apologetic, very cold-adapted. This one is from Australia. The file says it is warm there. Probably similar temperament to the Zenthari. Oh, how wrong I was. So catastrophically wrong. The transport ship docked with a hiss of pressurized air. The ramp extended, and out walked Jackson Webb. First thing I noticed? The hat. This absolutely ridiculous wide-brimmed thing that humans apparently wear to block their sun. He had it tilted at an angle that somehow conveyed both casual indifference and vague threat. His clothing was informal. Too informal for a first diplomatic meeting. Shorts. Actual shorts. In a space station where we maintained a carefully controlled temperature of exactly 17 degrees Celsius. He sauntered. That is the only word for it. While every other exchange student we had ever received walked nervously, carefully, reverently into our facility, this human sauntered down the ramp like he owned the place. A massive bag slung over one shoulder and the most disturbingly confident grin I had ever seen on any species. G-Day. He called out, his voice carrying across the entire docking bay. "You must be the welcome committee. I'm Jackson. Mates call me Jax." Trill looked at me. I looked at Trill. Neither of us moved. He walked right up to us, dropped his bag with a heavy thunk, and stuck out his hand. I stared at it. "It's a handshake," he said, still grinning. "You grab it, give it a shake. Human greeting thing. Or do you guys do something different? I can adapt." I reached out with my primary manipulator and grasped his hand. His grip was firm, very firm, almost aggressive. He pumped my arm up and down 3 times, then released. "Ripper," he said. "This place is absolutely mental, by the way. Saw 3 different species on the way in that I could not even pronounce. Is that normal? Like, do you guys just have every alien species hanging around, or is this like a special day?" "The Celestial Academy is home to over 400 species," I said, trying to regain my professional composure. We pride ourselves on diversity. 400? Mate, that is cooked. Back home, we thought we were diverse because we had like 50 different types of deadly spiders. This is next level. Deadly spiders? I made a mental note to review Earth's fauna file later. Welcome to the Academy, Trill said, her voice tight with forced cheer. I am Trill, and this is Coordinator Vrek. We will be facilitating your integration into our community. Too easy, Jackson said, hefting his bag again. Where do I drop my stuff? And please tell me you guys have food. I am absolutely starving. The ship had these little nutrient cubes that tasted like cardboard mixed with sadness. The nutrient cubes are scientifically formulated for optimal nutrition, I said stiffly. Yeah, mate, and they are also scientifically formulated to taste like absolute garbage. No offense. Offense? He just insulted Federation standard rations and then said no offense, as if that somehow made it acceptable. I could feel one of my tension glands beginning to throb. We led him through the main concourse. The Academy was magnificent, soaring architecture that defied gravity itself. Holographic displays showing the history of 1,000 worlds, students from across the galaxy moving between classes, some flying, some walking, some modes of movement do not translate well. Jackson looked around with wide eyes, but not the reverent wonder we usually saw. His expression was more like excited curiosity, the way you might look at an interesting insect right before you poked it with a stick. So what is the go with classes here? He asked. Do I just, show up? Or is there some kind of weird alien scheduling thing I need to figure out? You will receive your schedule tomorrow, I said. Today is for orientation and settling in. Sweet. And what about food? You guys got anything that is not those depressing cubes? We have a cafeteria with options for over 300 dietary requirements. But do you have meat pies? What? Meat pies, or sausage rolls, or even just a decent burger. Tell me you guys have discovered burgers. Trill looked at her datapad. We have protein synthesis chambers that can create nutritionally complete meals tailored to any species. Jackson stopped walking. He turned to look at her. That did not answer my question. Can these chambers make a burger? I suppose, if we input the correct molecular structure. Right, so tomorrow we are making burgers. This is happening. I am not spending a whole semester eating mystery cubes. I should have seen it then. The warning signs. The complete disregard for established protocol. The casual confidence in the face of an entirely alien civilization. The way he talked about our advanced technology like it was just another interesting toy he could mess around with. But I did not. I was still operating under the assumption that he would adapt. Humans were supposed to be adaptable, after all. It said so right in their species file. We reached his quarters, standard student accommodation, a sleeping pod, a study terminal, a hygiene chamber, a small window looking out at the nebula beyond. Perfectly adequate for any reasonable species. Jackson walked in, looked around, and nodded. Yeah, this will do. Bit smaller than my place back home, but I have lived in worse. Spent 3 weeks in a tent in the outback once. This has walls and, I assume, does not have redback spiders hiding in the corners, so I am calling it a win. There are no spiders of any kind on this station, I assured him. Good to know. Speaking of which, are there any, dangerous animals I should know about? Anything that might try to eat me, or inject me with venom? The station is completely safe. All species here are civilized. He laughed. Actually laughed. Mate, I have met plenty of civilized things that could still kill you. Crocodiles are technically civilized. They follow a whole social structure. Still would not want to share a swimming pool with one. I did not know what a crocodile was. I made another mental note. Your orientation packet is on the terminal, I said, gesturing to the device. It contains all necessary information about Academy rules, cultural sensitivity guidelines, and emergency procedures. Please review it before tomorrow. No worries. I will give it a read tonight. Something about the way he said that made me doubt he would actually read it. We left him to unpack. As soon as we were in the corridor, Trill turned to me, all three eyes wide with concern. That human is different, she said quietly. He is just adjusting, I replied, though I was not entirely convinced. We give him a few days. He will settle in. Famous last words. The next morning started with an incident in the cafeteria. I received the emergency call while I was reviewing other student files. Something about a human causing a disturbance. I rushed over, expecting. I do not know what I expected. Violence? A medical emergency? What I found was Jackson standing on a table, surrounded by at least 30 students from various species, all staring at him with expressions ranging from confusion to horror. He was holding what appeared to be a sandwich, a very large sandwich. So you are telling me, he was saying loudly to the crowd, that not one of you has ever had a proper bacon and egg sandwich? Not one? One. A Cree student, her tentacles quivering, spoke up. We do not understand the concept of combining multiple food items between bread. It seems inefficient. Inefficient? Jackson looked genuinely offended. Mate, this is the most efficient breakfast in the universe. Protein, carbs, fat, all in one handheld package. Back home, this is what you eat before going surfing, working, or fighting drop bears. What is a drop bear? Someone asked. Exactly what it sounds like. Bear. Drops on you. Very dangerous. I pushed through the crowd. What is going on here? Jackson looked down at me from the table. Oh, hey, Vrek. Just introducing everyone to proper human food. The synthesis chamber is actually pretty good once you figure out how to program it. Want a bite? Get down from the table. Now. He shrugged and hopped down with disturbing ease. No need to crack the whip, mate. I was just finishing anyway. You are causing a scene. I am sharing my culture. I thought that was the whole point of this exchange program thing. He had a point. A frustrating, technically correct point. I pulled him aside while the crowd dispersed, most of them still looking confused and slightly traumatized. Jackson, I said, trying to keep my voice level. I understand that you are excited to be here, but you need to follow station protocols. Standing on tables, making unusual food, talking about dangerous earth animals. These things make other students uncomfortable. He looked at me with those disturbingly perceptive human eyes. With all due respect, coordinator, uncomfortable is kind of the point. You do not learn about other cultures by staying comfortable. You learn by trying new things, even if those things are weird bacon sandwiches. There are appropriate ways to. Look, he interrupted. I read the orientation packet last night, all 300 pages of it. I know the rules. I know the protocols. But here is the thing. I am from a country where literally everything is trying to kill you. Spiders, snakes, jellyfish, plants, the sun itself. We have learned to adapt, to be flexible, to not freak out when things get a bit strange. And right now I am seeing a lot of students here who have never had to adapt to anything. They have lived their whole lives in controlled environments, following strict rules, never taking risks. This is a prestigious academic institution. Order and discipline are. Boring, he said flatly. You guys are so focused on order that you have forgotten how to have fun. When was the last time any species here did something spontaneous? Something unexpected? Something that was not in a file or a protocol or a schedule? I opened my mouth to respond. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. He grinned. Yeah, that is what I thought. Tell you what, I will tone it down a bit. Try to fit in better. But I am not promising miracles. I am Australian. We do not really do fitting in. That should have been my second warning. But like an idiot, I took him at his word and assumed everything would be fine. The first class was advanced xenobiology. I sat in on it, as I did with all new exchange students for the first week. The professor was a Zenthari, extremely knowledgeable, extremely rigid in his teaching methods. He began with a lecture on proper laboratory protocols. Jackson raised his hand. Yes, exchange student Jackson? Quick question, Professor. When we are studying specimens, are we allowed to actually touch them, or is everything behind glass? The professor's face plates shifted in what I recognized as surprise. Touch them? Why would you want to touch them? Because you cannot really understand something unless you interact with it. I mean, I spent half my degree back home wading through tide pools, picking up sea creatures, getting stung by things. You learn a lot more that way than you do staring at something in a tank. This is not, we do not, safety protocols prohibit. Right? Safety. Got it. But what if we wore protective gear? Gloves, suits, whatever you guys use? The specimens are kept in controlled environments for their own protection, not ours. Jackson leaned back in his seat. Fair enough. But seems like you are missing out on some interesting observations. Half the creatures I have studied only show their real behavior when they are being handled. Stress responses, defense mechanisms, communication patterns. You do not see that stuff through glass. The professor stared at him for a long moment. We will discuss this later. For now, please review the safety manual on your terminal. I could see the other students looking at Jackson with a mixture of fascination and fear. Who was this human who questioned their professor? Who suggested actually touching laboratory specimens? Who smiled while doing it? After class, I pulled him aside again. You cannot just challenge every professor, I said. I was not challenging him. I was asking questions. There is a difference between asking questions and undermining authority. Is there because from where I am standing, they look pretty similar. Back home, we are encouraged to question things, to think critically, to not just accept everything we are told. This is not Earth. Yeah, I noticed. You guys have 3 suns and everyone breathes different gases. Kind of hard to miss. But learning is learning, Vrek. It should not matter what planet you are on. He walked off before I could respond. That afternoon, there was an incident in the recreational facility. Jackson had discovered the zero-gravity sports arena and decided to try something called AFL, which apparently stands for Australian Football League. He convinced 6 other students to join him. I arrived to find complete mayhem. Students floating in zero gravity, trying to catch an oval-shaped ball Jackson had synthesized, crashing into each other, shouting, laughing, actual laughing. In a space station where most recreational activities involved quiet meditation or structured games with 17 pages of rules. This is amazing. One of the Morphean students yelled, their gelatinous form wobbling with excitement as they kicked the ball across the arena. A Cree student floated past, tentacles waving wildly. I do not understand the objective, but I am having fun anyway. Jackson, naturally, was in the center of it all, spinning and diving and catching the ball with practiced ease. He saw me at the entrance and waved. Rek, come join us. I will teach you how to mark. What is a mark? You catch the ball while it is in the air. It is great. Come on. I know. This is not, you need to. But I could not finish the sentence because I did not actually know what rule he was breaking. The recreational facility was for recreation. Students were allowed to create their own activities. There was nothing in the regulations about football, or laughter, or fun. I stood there watching these students, species that normally kept to themselves, playing together, learning from each other, adapting. And I realized something that made my tension glands throb even harder. Jackson was right. By the end of the first week, half the station knew about the Australian exchange student. The other half had heard rumors. He had introduced 12 different Earth foods to the cafeteria. He had started a lunchtime discussion group about dangerous animals we have survived, which was apparently both terrifying and wildly popular. He had convinced the athletics department to install something called a climbing wall in the gymnasium, and he had not broken a single rule. That was the part that drove me crazy. He pushed boundaries, challenged norms, created minor disturbances. But technically, according to the letter of the law, he had not violated any actual regulations. On the 7th day, I was called to the dean's office. Dean Cullifex was old. Really old. She had been running the Celestial Academy for over 200 years and had seen thousands of students pass through. Her species, the Kaltar, were known for their wisdom and patience. She was sitting behind her desk when I entered, 4 of her 6 eyes focused on a holographic display, the other 2 watching me. "Coordinator Vrek," she said, her voice like gravel sliding down a mountain. "We need to discuss the human." "I can explain." She held up a hand. "No explanation necessary. I have been monitoring his activities. Quite closely, in fact." My heart sank. "I will speak with him. Reinforce the protocols. Ensure he. I want you to leave him alone." I blinked. All 3 of my eyes. At once. "Excuse me?" "The human. Jackson Webb. Do not interfere with his activities." "But Dean, he is causing students to think, to question, to engage with their environment in ways they never have before. Do you know how many species have applied to the zero-gravity sports program this week?" "No, 47? 47 applications. For a program that usually gets 3 or 4 per semester. Do you know why?" I stayed silent. Because a human showed them it could be fun. Not just exercise. Not just skill development. Fun. An Earth concept we have somehow forgotten exists. She turned all 6 eyes on me now. "The Galactic Federation is old, Coordinator. Ancient, in fact. We have protocols for everything. Rules for every situation. We are stable, orderly, peaceful, and we are also stagnant. We have not had a truly new idea in this academy in 50 years. But, this human, he is different. His species is different. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them at every opportunity. They developed resilience, creativity, a refusal to accept things as they are. These are traits we have bred out of our civilizations in favor of stability. Perhaps that was a mistake." I could not believe what I was hearing. "You want me to let him continue disrupting things. I want you to let him be human. See what happens. Study it. Learn from it. That is what the cultural exchange program is for, is it not? To learn? To learn?" She dismissed me with a wave of her hand. I left the office in a daze. And that is when things got really interesting. Because that afternoon, Jackson came to my office with a proposal. He stood in my doorway, that same confident grin on his face, datapad in hand. "Got a minute?" he asked. "That depends on what you are about to suggest." "I want to organize a field trip." "A what?" "A field trip, you know. Leave the station, go somewhere. See something real. The academy is great and all, but you cannot learn everything from books and simulations. Sometimes you need to get your hands dirty." "Leave the station? Where would we possibly?" "There is a planet 3 systems over, Kepler 442 billion, Class M, breathable atmosphere, diverse ecosystem. Never been fully surveyed. Seems like a perfect opportunity for some hands-on learning." I stared at him. "That planet is in an unsurveyed system. It could be dangerous. Wait, everything is dangerous if you are not careful. The question is whether the risk is worth the reward. The paperwork alone would take months, the safety assessments, the environmental impact studies. Or," he said, leaning against the doorframe, "we could just go. Small group. Quick trip, in and out before anyone even notices. And would violate at least 40 different regulations." "I know," I counted. He was smiling. Actually smiling while proposing something completely insane. And here is the thing. The truly terrifying thing. Part of me, a small but growing part, wanted to say yes. Wanted to see what would happen if we just did something unexpected. Something spontaneous. Something completely against protocol. I need to think about this, I said. Take your time, but not too much time. Adventure waits for no one. He left. I sat at my desk, 3 tentacles pressed against my face, wondering how my carefully organized life had been turned completely upside down by one Australian human in less than 2 weeks. And the worst part, the truly, absolutely worst part, he had not even started his real plan yet. That would come later, with consequences I could never have imagined. But I am getting ahead of myself again. For now, let me just say this. If you ever get assigned an Australian exchange student, read their file very carefully. Then double-check it. Then maybe request a transfer to that methane mining station I mentioned earlier. Trust me, it would be safer. So, the field trip. Let me tell you exactly how that particular disaster unfolded, because I am still answering questions about it 6 months later, and my therapy sessions have only just started to help with the stress-induced scale flaking. 3 days after Jackson proposed his completely insane, regulation-violating, career-ending idea, I found myself sitting in my quarters at 2 in the morning, staring at the authorization forms on my datapad. I had not slept, could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw 2 possible futures. In one, I denied the request, followed protocol, kept my job, and spent the rest of my career wondering what might have been. In the other, I approved it, broke 47 different regulations, probably got demoted, but, well, the dean had said to let him be human, to see what happens. That was permission, right? Sort of? Maybe? I signed the forms. Then I immediately regretted it. Then I signed 3 more forms authorizing a small shuttle, environmental suits, and emergency medical supplies. Then I regretted those too. But the thing was, once you start down the path of spontaneous human-inspired decision-making, it is very hard to turn back. It is like stepping onto one of those moving walkways they have in transport hubs. Except this walkway is going downhill, very fast, and possibly on fire. The expedition team assembled 1 week later. Jackson, obviously. Then 3 volunteers. A Cree student named Pelix, who studied xenobotany and had somehow become fascinated with earth plants after Jackson showed her pictures of something called a eucalyptus tree. A Morphean named Glorp, which I know sounds ridiculous, but that is actually a very dignified name in their language, who specialized in atmospheric analysis. And finally, against my better judgment, Trill, my assistant, who apparently had caught whatever madness was spreading through the station. "This is exciting," she said, loading equipment onto the shuttle. All 3 of her eyes were bright with anticipation. "I have never done anything like this before." "That is because things like this are not supposed to be done," I muttered, checking the fuel cells for the 17th time. Jackson bounded up the loading ramp, carrying what appeared to be an excessive amount of personal supplies. Right then, "Everyone ready for an adventure?" "This is not an adventure," I said firmly. "This is a strictly controlled scientific survey mission with clearly defined parameters and safety protocols." "Yeah, nah. It is definitely an adventure. But I will let you keep telling yourself otherwise if it makes you feel better." Pelix floated over, her tentacles wrapped around several collection containers. "I have prepared sample storage for approximately 200 specimens. Do you think that will be sufficient?" 200? Jackson laughed. "Mate, if we only find 200 interesting things, I will eat my hat. And I really like this hat." The hat was still ridiculous, by the way. He wore it everywhere, even in space. Especially in space. Glorp oozed into the shuttle, their gelatinous form flowing into one of the specialized seats. The atmospheric readings from long-range scans indicate oxygen-nitrogen composition similar to Earth, pressure within acceptable range. Temperature averaging 23 degrees Celsius. Should be quite comfortable. "See?" Jackson said, grinning at me. "Comfortable. What could possibly go wrong?" Those words, those exact words. I should have turned the shuttle around right then, but I did not. The trip to Kepler 442 billion took 6 hours. During that time, Jackson entertained the crew with stories about Earth, specifically about Australia, specifically about the absolutely horrifying fauna that inhabited his homeland. "So there is this spider, right?" he said, floating in the zero gravity of the shuttle cabin, called a funnel web. "One of the most venomous creatures on the planet. Aggressive too. Will literally chase you. And you know where they like to hide? Shoes, swimming pools, inside houses, basically anywhere humans are." Pelix's tentacles had gone rigid with fear, and humans just live with these creatures. "Well, yeah. I mean, you learn to check your shoes before putting them on. Shake out your towels. Do not stick your hands in dark places. Basic survival stuff." "That is not basic. That is nightmare fuel," Trill said, her voice slightly higher than normal. "Nah, the real nightmare is the box jellyfish. It's transparent, so you cannot see it coming. Tentacles covered in thousands of stinging cells. One touch can kill you in minutes. They swarm near the beaches during summer. And humans still go to these beaches?" Glorp burbled. "Of course we do. You just swim in the stinger nets, or wear a wetsuit. Or, accept that death might be a possibility and go for it anyway." I was beginning to understand something about humans, something that had not been in their species file. They were not just adaptable. They were stubborn. Aggressively, almost spitefully stubborn. Their entire evolutionary history was them looking at a hostile universe and saying, "Yeah, but watch this." The planet came into view, a blue and green marble hanging in space, 2 small moons orbiting lazily. Beautiful, actually. Peaceful looking. "That is what they all say," I muttered. "What?" Trill asked. "Nothing. Prepare for atmospheric entry." The shuttle descended smoothly. Jackson had insisted we land near a coastal region, arguing that shorelines always had the most biodiversity. I had reluctantly agreed, mostly because the internal scans showed relatively flat terrain and minimal large animal activity. We touched down in a clearing about half a kilometer from the water. The moment the shuttle doors opened, we were hit with a wall of sensory input. Smells, sounds, the feeling of actual wind, something you never experience on a space station. Jackson was first out, naturally. He jumped down onto the alien grass, looked around, took a deep breath, and smiled. "Now this is what I am talking about. Proper adventure." The rest of us followed more cautiously. I had my scanner out, checking for threats every 3 seconds. Trill stayed close to the shuttle, clearly nervous. Pelix was already examining nearby plants with scientific enthusiasm. Glorp had extended several sensory pseudopods to analyze the atmosphere. Readings confirmed breathable air, Glorp announced. "No toxic compounds detected. Pollen count high but not dangerous. Some unidentified organic molecules, but within safe parameters." Translation: "It is fine," Jackson said, walking toward the tree line. "Come on! Let us see what this place has to offer." "Wait," I called out. "We need to establish a perimeter. Set up monitoring equipment. Follow the survey protocol." He turned around, walking backwards now. "Or we could split up. Cover more ground. I will take the coastal area. You guys check out the forest. We meet back here in 2 hours. Split up? That is the worst possible idea. Every species knows you never split up on an unexplored planet. That is how people die. Mate, I have been exploring unexplored places since I was 12. Outback, rainforest, reef systems. I know what I am doing. Trust me. Trust him. Trust the human who had turned my orderly life into chaos in less than 3 weeks. Trust the species that lived with funnel web spiders and box jellyfish, and apparently something called a drop bear that I still did not fully understand. 1 hour, I said finally, and you take a communicator, and the emergency beacon, and a medical kit. Deal. See you all in a bit." He walked off, whistling something that sounded vaguely musical, hands in his pockets like he was taking a stroll through a park instead of exploring an alien world. Pelix floated after him. I am going too. The plant life near the water will be different from the forest. Fine. Everyone just do whatever they want. Ignore the coordinator. What do I know? I have only been doing this for 12 years. Trill patted my shoulder with one of her secondary hands. It will be okay. What is the worst that could happen? Famous. Last words. Glorp and I headed into the forest, while Trill stayed with the shuttle to monitor communications. The trees here were tall, their bark a strange purple color that shimmered in the light. The undergrowth was thick, filled with plants that seemed to lean toward us as we passed, as if curious. Fascinating, Glorp burbled, extending a pseudopod to touch one of the trees. The cellular structure is unlike anything in our database. This planet may have developed complex life completely independently. I was only half listening. Most of my attention was on my scanner, watching for any signs of dangerous fauna. The readings were confused, lots of movement, but nothing large. Small creatures, probably harmless. Probably. That is when Jackson's voice crackled over the communicator. Hey Vrek, quick question. And my tension glands immediately started throbbing. What kind of question? If I found something really interesting but also possibly dangerous, would you want to know about it now or after I have investigated it? Now. Definitely now. Do not investigate anything dangerous. Too late. But it is fine. Probably fine. I am like 70% sure it is fine. 70%? Jackson, what did you find? Well, there is good news and bad news. Good news, the marine life here is absolutely incredible. I have found 3 species of fish that look like nothing on Earth. Very exciting. Pelix is going to lose her mind. And the bad news? One of them is about 4 meters long, has lots of teeth, and seems very interested in me. I started running back toward the shuttle. Get out of the water. Now. I am not in the water. I am on the shore. It is in the water. But it keeps… Oh, hang on. It is doing something weird. What is it doing? Coming out of the water. Fish do not come out of the water. This one does. And it has legs. Well, leg-like appendages. 4 of them. This is fascinating from an evolutionary standpoint. Terrifying from a personal safety standpoint. I could hear Pelix in the background, her voice high with panic. Jackson, we should retreat to the shuttle. Yeah, good call. We are going to start moving now. Vrek, we are heading back to you. Keep the engine warm. The communicator went quiet. I looked at Glorp. Glorp looked at me. Without a word, we both started running. We reached the shuttle just as Jackson and Pelix emerged from the tree line. Behind them, I could see something large moving through the undergrowth. Something that splashed and hissed and had entirely too many teeth. Into the shuttle. I yelled. Everyone scrambled up the ramp. I slammed the door controls. The creature burst into the clearing, water streaming off its scaled body, those leg-like appendages carrying it with disturbing speed. It was amphibious. A 4-meter-long amphibious predator that could survive on land and in water. It slammed into the shuttle door. The entire craft shook. Are we safe? Trill asked, all 3 eyes wide with terror. The hull is reinforced. It cannot get in. I turned to Jackson. You found the one dangerous predator on this entire planet. He was grinning. Actually grinning. Covered in mud and alien plant matter, breathing hard from running, and grinning. Mate, that was amazing. Did you see the musculature on that thing? The way it transitioned from aquatic to terrestrial movement? That is millions of years of evolution right there. It tried to eat you. Well, yeah, that is what predators do. But it did not succeed, so I am calling it a win. Plus, Pelix got samples of at least 30 different plant species. This trip is already a success. The creature outside circled the shuttle, hissing occasionally, clearly frustrated that its prey had escaped. I collapsed into the pilot's seat, my tension glands throbbing so hard I could barely see straight. We are leaving. Now, this was a mistake. A huge, terrible mistake. "Oh, come on," Jackson said, leaning against the bulkhead. "It is just one cranky fish lizard thing. That is nothing compared to saltwater crocodiles. Those things are properly dangerous." "What is a saltwater crocodile?" "Never mind. Look, we cannot leave yet. We have only been here an hour. We barely explored anything. There is a 4-meter predator outside trying to break into our shuttle. It will get bored eventually. They always do. Give it 20 minutes, it will wander off, and we can continue the survey." I stared at him. "You want to wait for the predator to leave so we can continue wandering around the deadly alien planet. When you say it like that, it sounds bad, but yeah, basically." "No, absolutely not. We are leaving." Wreck. He crouched down next to my chair, his expression suddenly serious. "I get it. You are scared, and that is fine. Fear is healthy. It keeps you alive. But you cannot let it stop you from experiencing things, from learning, from growing. That is not living. That is just existing. Easy for you to say. Your planet spent millions of years trying to kill your species. You are adapted to danger." "Exactly. And you know what we learned from all that danger? We learned to assess risks, to prepare, to adapt. We learned that the universe is a dangerous place, but it is also beautiful and amazing and worth exploring. And yeah, sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes the fish lizard chases you. But that is part of the adventure." The creature outside had stopped ramming the shuttle. I could see it on the external cameras, pacing back and forth, occasionally glancing at us. 20 minutes, I said finally. "If it is still there in 20 minutes, we leave." "Fair enough." 15 minutes later, the creature did indeed wander off, probably to find easier prey. We cautiously exited the shuttle, scanners out, weapons ready. Well, I had a weapon. Jackson had a sample collection kit and what he called his lucky stick, which was literally just a piece of wood he had picked up. "What is that going to do against a predator?" I asked. "Due est, probably nothing. But it makes me feel better. Psychological advantage." We spent the next 3 hours conducting the most stressful scientific survey of my life. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow could be another predator. But Jackson was right. The planet was incredible. The biodiversity was off the charts. Pelix collected samples of plants that could potentially revolutionize agriculture. Glorp found atmospheric bacteria that might have applications in terraforming. Even I had to admit, grudgingly, that the trip was scientifically valuable. And then Jackson found the cave. "Hey everyone, you should come see this." We gathered around the entrance. It was hidden behind a waterfall, which Jackson had of course decided to investigate because apparently humans see falling water and think, yes, let me get closer to that natural hazard. "There are markings," he said, pointing to the stone around the entrance. "Look, deliberately carved. Geometric patterns. This is not natural." He was right. The marks were clearly artificial, which meant intelligent life, which meant we were potentially violating first contact protocols, which meant my career was about to get even more complicated. "We need to report this," I said, pulling out my communicator. "Or," Jackson said, "we could take a quick look inside, just a peek, see if anyone is home." "That is the worst idea you have had yet." "Come on. When else are we going to get an opportunity like this? First contact with a potentially intelligent species. You do not just walk away from that." I looked at the cave, at the markings, at Jackson's eager face. I thought about the dean's words. Let him be human. See what happens. 10 minutes, I said. We look around for 10 minutes. If we see any signs of current habitation, we leave immediately and report back. "You are the best, Vrek." I knew there was a reason I liked you. We entered the cave. It was dark, cool, and surprisingly dry. Our lights revealed more markings on the walls. Pictures, actually. Primitive but clear. Depictions of creatures that looked vaguely like the fish-lizard predator, but smaller, hunted by figures that appeared to be bipedal, tool-using. There was a civilization here, Pelix whispered, her voice full of awe. Look at this. Hunting scenes. Communal gatherings. This is a complete record of their culture. We moved deeper, following the pictures, watching as they became more sophisticated. The tools became more complex. The structures became more elaborate. And then, about 50 meters in, we found it. The chamber. It was large, circular, with a domed ceiling. In the center stood a pedestal, and on the pedestal sat an object. Metallic. Geometric. Definitely not natural. It hummed with a low, barely audible frequency that I could feel in my bones. Is that? Trill started. Technology, Glorp finished. Advanced technology. Far more advanced than the cave paintings would suggest. Jackson walked toward it, that same confident stride he always had. Do not touch it, I said immediately. I am not going to touch it. I am just going to look. He circled the pedestal, examining the object from every angle. This does not match anything else in the cave. A different level of sophistication. Different purpose. If I had to guess, I would say this was not made by whoever painted those walls. Then who made it? Trill asked. That is when the object started glowing. Not because Jackson touched it. He was still a meter away. It just activated on its own, responding to our presence or our technology, or maybe just because the universe has a terrible sense of timing. The hum increased in frequency. Patterns of light danced across its surface, and the air in the cave began to shimmer. Okay, Jackson said, backing away slowly. That is probably not good. Everyone out. Nice and calm. No sudden movements. We started retreating toward the entrance. The object's glow intensified. The shimmer in the air became a visible distortion. And then, with a sound like reality tearing itself apart, something appeared in the chamber. Not something. Someone. They were tall. Bipedal. Covered in what looked like organic armor. Their face was angular, with large eyes that glowed with an inner light. And they were holding what was unmistakably a weapon. They looked at us. We looked at them. Nobody moved. Then Jackson, being Jackson, waved. G-Day, he said cheerfully. Sorry for the intrusion. We were just having a look around. Hope that is all right. The being tilted their head, studying us. Then they looked at the object on the pedestal. Then back at us. They spoke. It sounded like music mixed with wind chimes or universal translators, which had been absolutely useless up until this point, suddenly kicked in. You activated the beacon. Why? We did not mean to, I said quickly, stepping forward. We are explorers. Scientists. We found this cave by accident. We intended no harm. The being's weapon lowered slightly. You are not the old ones. The who? The species that once inhabited this world. We have been monitoring this beacon for 3,000 years, waiting for their return. You are different. Yeah, we get that a lot, Jackson said. Listen, we are from the Galactic Federation. This is our first time on this planet. We had no idea anyone was, well, beacon monitoring. If we crossed any lines, we sincerely apologize. The being studied us for a long moment. Then, slowly, they lowered their weapon completely. The old ones are gone, have been for millennia. This was their home. We were their caretakers. When they vanished, we remained, protecting, waiting. That is, Pelix started, her voice full of emotion. That is incredibly sad. It is duty. But perhaps the being looked at us again, something that might have been curiosity in those glowing eyes. Perhaps the time for waiting has ended. You are new, different. You explore with wonder, not conquest, but the human, especially. They pointed at Jackson. Me? He looked genuinely surprised. What did I do? You see danger and smile. You find the unknown and embrace it. You are foolish and brave in equal measure. These were qualities the old ones valued. Perhaps they would have wanted us to help species like yours, to share what we know. And that is how we accidentally made first contact with a species that had been hiding on an uncharted planet for 3,000 years. That is how Jackson Webb, Australian exchange student and apparent chaos magnet, became the first human to establish diplomatic relations with the Wardens, as they called themselves. That is how I went from cultural exchange coordinator to xenodiplomatic liaison in one terrible, wonderful afternoon. The return trip to the academy was surreal. The Warden came with us. They wanted to see the station, to meet other species, to finally, after millennia of solitary duty, rejoin the wider galaxy. Dean Cullifex was waiting when we docked. She took one look at us, muddy and exhausted, with an unknown alien species in tow, and smiled. Actually smiled. Report, Coordinator Vrek. I tried to find words. Failed. Tried again. Jackson stepped forward. We found ancient ruins, discovered evidence of an extinct civilization, activated an alien beacon, and made first contact with a species that has been in isolation for 3,000 years, and collected about 200 plant samples. Also, there was a scary fish-lizard thing. Pretty standard field trip, really. The Dean's smile widened. I see. And the Warden? The Warden bowed. I am Sentinel Kai. I wish to learn about your Federation, to share our knowledge, to honor the memory of those we protected. Then welcome to the Celestial Academy, Sentinel Kai. I suspect you will find it quite interesting. That evening I sat in my quarters, filling out incident reports that would probably take weeks to process. Trill was with me, helping organize the data. You know, she said quietly, I never understood why we stopped exploring, why we became so focused on order and protocol. But today I remembered what it felt like to discover something new, to be scared and excited at the same time. Jackson was right. We needed this. I looked at her. He nearly got us killed. Multiple times. But he did not. And we learned things we never would have learned otherwise. That has to count for something. There was a knock on my door. Jackson poked his head in. Got a minute? I sighed. What now? Did you find another ancient alien artifact? Adopt a predator? Start an interstellar incident? He laughed. Nah, nothing like that. Just wanted to say thanks for approving the trip and for trusting me. I know it was not easy. That, I said flatly, is the understatement of the century. Yeah, well, I also wanted to say sorry. I know I have been a pain, pushing boundaries, breaking rules, causing you stress. But here is the thing. Where I come from, we have a saying, no risk, no reward. You cannot discover anything if you do not take chances. Your planet tried to kill you for millions of years. That is not normal. That is not how most species evolved. Maybe. But maybe that is exactly what the galaxy needs right now. A little bit of danger. A little bit of chaos. A reminder that the universe is big and scary and absolutely worth exploring. I wanted to argue. To tell him he was wrong. To insist that order and protocol were what kept civilization running. But I could not, because he was right. Over the next few months, the academy changed. Slowly at first, then faster. Students started proposing their own research projects. Professors began incorporating more hands-on learning. The athletics department expanded dramatically. 3 other species requested to learn about Australian football, which somehow became a regular thing. Sentinel Kai integrated beautifully. They started teaching classes on ancient xenoarchaeology and long-term cultural preservation. Their perspective, after 3,000 years of patient observation, was invaluable. And Jackson? He continued being Jackson, organizing expeditions, challenging assumptions, making friends with every species he met, introducing them to concepts like barbecues and beach volleyball and something called Tim Tams that became inexplicably popular in the cafeteria. I did not get demoted. In fact, I got promoted. Turns out the Federation was very interested in my innovative approach to cultural exchange. They offered me a position overseeing similar programs across multiple sectors. I accepted, because Jackson had taught me something important. Sometimes the best way to learn is to take a risk, to step outside your comfort zone, to embrace the chaos. Even if that chaos wears a ridiculous hat and insists that everything is no worries, mate. 6 months after the field trip, I found myself back in Docking Bay 12. Jackson's exchange program was ending. He was heading home. He stood at the shuttle ramp, bag over his shoulder, that same confident grin on his face. Thanks for everything, Vrek. This was genuinely the best experience of my life. You nearly died. Multiple times. Yeah, but I did not. That is what counts. Plus, I made some great friends. Learned a lot. Changed some perspectives. Pretty good outcome, if you ask me. The station will be quieter without you. Quieter. More boring. Less Australian. Yeah, probably. He stuck out his hand. Take care of yourself. And remember, no risk, no reward. I grasped his hand, shook it. Safe travels, Jackson Webb. Try not to cause too much chaos on your next adventure. No promises. He boarded the shuttle. The ramp closed. The engines fired up. And just like that, the Australian was gone. Trill appeared beside me, watching the shuttle depart. Do you think we will ever see him again? She asked. I thought about it. About Jackson's personality, his curiosity, his absolute refusal to accept limitations. Knowing him? Absolutely. Probably when we least expect it. With another completely insane plan that violates multiple regulations and somehow works out perfectly. She laughed. I look forward to it. And here's the strange thing. So did I. Because Jackson had taught us all something crucial. The Galactic Federation, with all its protocols and procedures and carefully maintained order, had become stagnant, safe, predictable. We had forgotten what it felt like to explore, to take risks, to embrace the unknown. Sometimes you need an Australian, someone who looks at danger and smiles, someone who finds rules and asks but why, someone who refuses to accept that things have to stay the way they have always been, someone who reminds you that the universe is vast and strange and full of possibilities, even if those possibilities occasionally involve scary fish lizard predators and accidentally activating ancient alien beacons. So if you ever find yourself assigned an Australian exchange student, here is my advice. Read the file. Follow the protocols. Prepare yourself mentally. And then throw all of that out the window and just hold on tight. Because you are about to learn more about life, the universe, and yourself than any textbook could ever teach you. It will be terrifying, exhausting, completely unpredictable, and absolutely, definitely, 100% worth it. No risk, no reward. G-Day from Vrek. And thanks, Jackson, wherever you are, for showing us how to live again.